Hello and welcome to Low Volume, smallformfactor.net's podcast. Today we're trying out our new format with YouTube being involved. Unfortunately Joshua couldn't be with us today. It's just myself, John Morrison, also known as Confusers, and James, also known as Ibophobia. So we'll get right into it, and we're going to start talking about Intel today. In the news of this week, I've posted. Hello and welcome to Low Volume, smallformfactor.net's podcast today. This week we've posted 3 articles in regards to Intel. We've got Intel's next HEDT platform is being readied. We've got a little snippet on their new Kaby Lake platform, and as well as the Kaby Lake CPUs being tested. So we'll go to there. Sorry, but with this being a new format, it's going to take a little bit of getting used to me flipping through everything and whatnot. So we've got the first article. Are you looking at this, James?
Yeah, the cool. High-end desktop.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Have you read into this at all?
First off, though, I think it's a stupid name.
HEDT.
No, the Basin Falls.
Ah, yeah.
It just doesn't sound cool.
Yeah, what's it got to do with
anything? I don't know. Yeah, which, oh well, but
yeah, to me, Intel's platform names like Skylake and Kaby Lake and stuff like that. It's like lakes, whoop-de-doo.
So, I mean, I guess Basin Falls is the platform, but I guess the processors themselves are still like Skylake X and Kaby Lake X or Kaby Lake whatever. So because I don't recall the platform itself having code names before, because it was just like X99, which I don't like. X79, X99, I don't think they have code names for like the chipset itself, so that's kind of unusual, I think. I mean, at least as far as I recall, I don't know. Do you remember if any of the previous chipsets had code names?
I know the Atom platforms did. I'm not so sure about the other ones.
Well, that's kind of because Atom's a little funny because it's all integrated. So
yeah.
Okay, so I don't know. It just seems unusual then to have Basin Falls.
Yeah.
But whatever.
So this will be replacing Socket 2011 version 3, I think we're up to.
Yes.
And it's interesting that Intel is launching this as both Kaby Lake X and Skylake X. Generally, from in the past, they've launched, say, it would be Skylake first, and then a few months later, it would be Kaby Lake because of the different desktop platforms. I believe they did that with the previous generation, so Broadwell and Haswell were a significant difference in time in regards to the launch. But they're going to be launching both of them around about the same time. My understanding is they're going to launch Skylake X first with the 6, 8, and 10 core processors, and then a little bit later, there's nothing set in stone right now. Kaby Lake X with the quad core will be launched soon after that. Now the SKUs are kind of a bit strange. You would think that the Kaby Lake X would be Kaby Lake being the newer platform, they would have the higher end processors, so all the optimizations, the faster clocks, the more cores. But with this, Kaby Lake X is only a quad core. It's got a limited amount of PCI lanes, so down to 16 from 28 or 44. And it's still a 112 watt processor, which is huge for a quad core.
That is I think they've done this before though, where I don't think Haswell E and then Broadwell E doesn't have quad core variants, but I believe you can get a quad core Xeon for the same sockets.
Okay.
So my suspicion is that, I mean, they're already doing it on the Xeons because I mean, not every server workload necessarily is multi-threaded, because especially a web server doesn't necessarily need lots of cores, because like especially like just kind of like a low traffic server. I mean, it doesn't need a lot of cores, but um, there are certain workloads I think where you don't necessarily need a high core count, but you may want like lots of RAM. So I could see this being aimed at like those type of uses, and I guess previously you could get it on a Xeon, and now they're just kind of bringing it to like the prosumer um, market as well with a non-Xeon version. But that it's based on Kaby Lake though is weird to me. Like rather than just doing like a quad core Skylake, they're doing a quad core Kaby Lake at roughly the same time period. So that's unusual, but like the existence of a quad core part itself isn't really that strange to me. But um, like why it's based on the next gen at the same time though is just rather strange.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
wondering if it's just for the name. They're actually pretty much going to be the exact same architecture. And
well, I don't think they'd go that far. Like if it's like literally a Skylake processor and they just call it a Kaby Lake, that would be. I mean, Intel does some weird stuff, but I don't think they'd go that far.
it's not quite
Um,
GPU level rebranding for 3 generations in a row.
yeah, yeah, GPUs are really bad about
I
that,
know.
but I don't. It's not as common. I don't think it's really common in the CPU world. Um,
I can't think of it happening.
yeah, I can't either. So like, it may be just because I mean, I guess it could be like it is like a marketing thing, but it's more like yes, it's only a quad, but oh, it's Kaby Lake, it's the next thing. So it may be they like compensate for the fact that it only is a quad, but I don't know. It's a weird part because like I mean, it exists in the Xeon world, so I can see why they'd bring it to like the non-Xeon platform, but I mean, it is a weird part because I mean, pricing is going to be weird too because Broadwell E, I'm not real happy with the pricing on that, but like Haswell E, like the low end part, the 5820K, isn't that much more expensive than like the 6700K, the consumer high end. So like if we're already at the point where like the entry level 6 core is not that much more expensive than the consumer or the mainstream quad, like where is this going to fit in as far as pricing for like the high end quad? Um, like it's just going to be like a weird part. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll be curious. Like I'll be curious like how they're going to market it. Like who are they going to aim it at and stuff like that. Plus, I mean, it's also cut down in lanes because that's the other. I mean, because it has the advantage, I guess, of maybe CPU cache and then just like the platform itself. So the high end desktop motherboard platform. So then you get like presumably you'll get um, quad channel RAM as well.
Not with a Kaby Lake
Uh,
X.
yeah, with Kaby Lake X.
Yeah,
So,
that's
but
that's.
like
Sorry.
I was gonna say, like you only get 16 lanes though, which to me, like the PCIe lanes is one of the big advantages of the high end platform, um, because the consumer platform has been limited to 16 lanes forever. Uh, so I don't know. It's like it's basically its only advantage, I guess, would be just the motherboard itself. If for some reason you just need those high end boards and then RAM, but everything else you're basically no better off than you would be with the mainstream. So
Yeah, the RAM's an
yeah.
interesting point because the way it's going, because of the different setups of the chips, the KB like X is going to have only dual channel memory configurations. So if you put that in a full fat HEDT board, it's
Oh,
actually
you're
going to
right.
disable half the RAM slots. So say you've got a board with 8 slots, you're only going to be able to run four
There's
of them.
no advantage
So there's
then.
no advantage to it whatsoever
Uh,
except for possible upgrade
yeah, I
paths in
didn't
the future.
because like on the first, yeah, the first chart, yeah, the first chart just says like 666 at 1 DIMM per channel, and then 2400 at 2 DIMM per channel. But then yeah, the second one, yeah, you're right, it's 2 channel only.
Yeah,
So yeah, that makes no sense.
yeah, it's.
I don't know.
I'm kind of hoping they price this one lower than the high end consumer level product, just maybe as a taster to get into the HEDT platform. But I
Mm,
can I
I don't know.
The Skylake X platform I can completely understand because that's just your next level, like 2011 product. But that one is, yeah. So I'm confused.
I am too. So I guess we'll just have to wait for it to actually release to figure out. So I guess what is it? So I guess we're looking Q3 2017 for the Skylake X. So uh so yeah, I guess we'll find out. Or 2017.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's still a ways off then.
still a ways off. We haven't even seen any boards released or any pictures of this new socket as yet. It's got 55 more pins though. Is all of the pins.
I know the pin count's getting ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that's higher than any Opteron based platform either.
Yeah, though I mean Zen's gonna have a lot of pins, and then there's that weird socket, the what is it, the Knights Canyon socket?
Yes.
Which has like that stupid, like crazy pin count.
Yeah, I think I think Zen is 1300 something, but in a PGA rather than an LGA setup, so it's going to be very very fine pins, like mobile processor level size of pins, I think.
Can you imagine ripping one of those out of a socket on accident? That would be a nightmare.
Or bending one like right in the middle.
Yeah, because as someone who has done that on accident several times,
Haven't we all?
like it's a pain to bend them back, but it's usually doable, like on the current chips, like AM2, AM3 chips. I can't imagine trying to do that on a Zen chip. That's going to be crazy.
Or even trying to if the 2066 socket is the same size as 2011, trying to fix one of the little motherboard pins.
Yeah, bending Intel LGA pins is insane.
Yeah,
like I've done it a couple times, and sometimes it's fixable, but it's really because like the AMD processors, like at least it's just like a straight cylinder of metal.
Yes.
I mean, it's a really small, really delicate piece of metal, but it's just a straight like pin. But the Intel LGA they're less pins and more like springs.
Yes.
So yes, they're extremely difficult. And I've actually like on my EVGA X99 Micro 2 board, I accidentally bent a couple. Like I think I accidentally bent 2 or 3 pins.
Ouch.
When I was working on it once, which luckily I just let's see. I think what it was is what was I doing? I think I was like reseating the bracket, the mounting bracket, and then I think my finger slipped and just kind of pressed into the pins, into the socket. So at least it was kind of just like evenly pressed down. It's not like they were bent over or something crazy. So I was kind of just able to take like I think like a small paper clip or something like that and just carefully bend it back. But it's a pain.
Yeah. I've dealt with bent pins in I think it was 1155 platform, and it got bent down once because someone had dropped the CPU corner first into the socket.
Ooh,
you bend the pin back, and it like instantly snapped. It's like, great.
Yeah, that's the thing is like if it gets bent too far, then yeah, bending it back almost always just snaps it because it's so brittle.
And they're a bit less resilient to it than the cylinder of metal that you get on the AMD ones.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many of them. Anyhow, so we'll go on to our next one, which is the Kaby Lake 300 series chipsets will start integrating more features like wireless LAN and USB 3.1. So we're going to more.
Yay!
Yeah.
Because
sorry. Continue.
Oh, I was gonna say like third-party chipsets suck.
Yeah.
Like back in the before USB 3.0 got integrated onto the Intel chipset, and we had to deal with all these like ASMedia and NEC chipsets and all those things. Like, I don't know. Sometimes they were okay. Most of the time they sucked.
Flaky
just
drivers.
They weren't reliable, compatibility issues, driver issues, and then like same thing when SATA 3. Like basically, if the SATA 3 ports weren't off the Intel controller, you might as well just not use them.
because they're so much slower.
Yeah, they're slower and just less reliable. So, I mean, 3.1, I don't think has been nearly as bad as like when 3.0 came out because I haven't really heard as many issues, though. I think that may partly because there just isn't that many 3.1 devices to actually like push it hard.
Yeah, it's all been close enough to
So
3.
3.1, yeah, that's nice to see it, but I don't think it's been as big a problem. But Wi-Fi though, like
Yeah,
like those mini ITX boards that come with those cheap like Realtek and Broadcom wireless chips, especially the wireless AC ones,
they're
like those things
horrible.
are useless. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the problem is they're also integrating Bluetooth into the same chip, and
mhm.
you just end up with, as soon as you try and use Bluetooth, your Wi-Fi drops and vice versa, and it's just
Yeah. So like the Intel chips are like, I mean, some of the boards either come with wireless or Intel wireless cards, but those are uncommon, or people just like spend the money and just buy their own. So with it integrated, then it'll be nice because then it'll be much more likely that people will just use the Intel one, like the motherboard makers, rather than sourcing a third party one.
yeah. The only reason I
Um,
can see them using a like an after, well, I wouldn't really call it aftermarket, an alternative chipset for it is just for traces routing, because you've got
well,
all the
it's
stuff to
usually
route away
cheaper
from it anyway.
because if it's anything like the Intel NICs, it's even though it's integrated into the chipset, so theoretically it's like free. Like Intel, I think charges the OEMs to like actually use it, even though it's
Licensing,
just built into the chipset. Yeah,
that's pretty
so
crappy.
even though it's like built in, and you would have to like add another chip to the board and then route it to add like a Realtek chip, it can actually be cheaper because Intel charges them to unlock the NIC functionality. So that's why you see like Realtek NICs on low end boards, even though the Intel chipset has a NIC in it. So
It's always
like
Realtek on low end boards.
I know, yeah.
Never
So
Broadcom. It's
same thing
always
with
Realtek.
wireless.
Yeah.
So even though it's going to be built in wireless, I mean, it's still not a guarantee that we'll see just Intel everywhere on low end boards. But
Mm.
at least the mid range boards, I'm hoping that we'll just see like Intel across the board.
Yeah, I'm hoping your ITX will be across the board kind of thing, single driver blob or driver
On
station.
ITX especially though, I think it's much more likely for Intel wireless because like the Intel, or I mean like just having a wireless card on the board takes up a not insignificant amount of space.
Yeah, and that's
So
room that you could mark it as a M.2 slot or whatnot as
yeah,
extra
like
storage.
yeah, if you look at the Asus Impact, the especially like the Skylake one, like they're just really hurting for room on that thing. So I could definitely see them ditching the wireless card on that
Mm.
to make room for other things
Be interesting.
like M.2 Asus. If you're listening, I would very much like an M.2 on the next Impact board, please, because U.2 is dead. I've not seen a single one other than the Intel drive.
I haven't used an M.2 driver.
Yeah.
So going
I mean, and like Intel's basically staking next gen storage on U or not U.2 on Optane,
Mm.
um, which is going to be an M.2 form factor.
Okay.
So, I mean, at least the first gen Optane drives will be either M.2 for like kind of the bulk storage or like larger storage capacities, and then they'll have like the DIMM versions that will fit in the RAM slots, which I don't think we've confirmed if that will actually make it to consumer boards for the first gen. That may be like a server thing.
I'm pretty sure it
Uh,
wouldn't make it to consumer boards first gen, just
yeah,
from the complexity and the support from the motherboard side of things.
yeah. So, but anyway, so like Intel's kind of staking their future on storage on Optane, the first gen of which will be M.2. And then they're also the only ones that currently sell a U.2 drive for consumers. So, I mean, unless they just make another big push on U.2, I think we can call it almost dead at this point.
Yeah.
Because there's just nothing that uses it other than the Intel 750. So,
Nobody uses it. If nobody adopts the platform, it's just going to go.
Yeah,
Go bye
which
bye.
yep, like well, I mean, SATA Express still stuck around forever, even though nobody uses it. Um,
Yeah, another one I've never used.
yeah, which I think they only did it because it just makes for uh, because they're backwards compatible as SATA ports, so you're not necessarily like losing anything, um, but it just makes an easy marketing feature.
Ooh, next generation storage platform that you can't buy drives for.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, as far as I know, there's not like there has never been a consumer SATA Express drive available for sale anywhere.
yeah, I don't think I've
I
ever
don't think
seen
you've
one.
ever been able to buy one. So
It's almost a gimmick having the SATA Express port on the board. So yeah, this is a
yeah,
Pro
it
board.
really
You
is.
got next generation SATA on it. Good luck.
Because it's like Thunderbolt 1 and 2, like they never saw a huge adoption, but at least you could buy stuff for it.
Yeah,
But like SATA Express, literally it's useless.
yeah. I suppose U.2
Yeah.
has that advantage. You could buy one thing.
Yeah, there's at least one drive you can buy that uses it. So it's not completely useless, but um yeah, it's just yeah. Oh
The
well.
many storage platforms that have gone the way of the dodo. Should write a rant on it at some point.
Yeah, and yeah, it's definitely I mean, it's crazy how fast it's like developing now though at this point.
Hmm.
Because like the Samsung 960 Pro is already hitting the limits of PCI Express 3.0 X4. So, I mean, at least just with sequential reads. But it's already happened though. So either like the 970 Pro or whatever they end up calling it, it's going to have to move to uh, PCI 4.0,
Hmm.
or it'll have yeah, because the M.2 connectors you can't really add more lanes to it.
No, they're pretty
It's
small.
physically room. So yeah, it's crazy. Like Samsung's already waiting on the PCI Express revision to make their SSDs faster, which is just nuts.
Which I
And
believe.
it's also crazy that like GPUs aren't even at that point.
No, nowhere near. Like you drop a
Yeah.
even a 1080 in a X8 slot, you're only gonna lose like 2% or 3% or something.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah,
So, but then like SSDs are already like chomping at the bit for more bandwidth. That's crazy.
I suppose it's to do with the GPUs. You can optimize the stuff going through the slot, so you're only sending it the core data. It's doing all the
Yeah,
processing
that's
itself
true.
and sending
Most
out
of the
data out of a
processing,
different port.
yeah, it's done on board, whereas an SSD is kind of useless
Uh,
unless it can transfer data.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't
Won't I think Zen and KB Lake are both bringing Gen 4, aren't they?
know. Cabby Lake, I do not think is doing four,
I heard rumors
but I
that
may
Zen
be
will
wrong.
be, which is
Yeah,
fucking. It was
Zen
it's
better.
hilarious,
Uh,
but because AM3 Plus still doesn't have three.
I know. Like AM3 Plus is so behind.
Yeah, it's like you've got the high end 990
uh,
FX chipset. It actually has Gen 3 in it, but it has not been enabled.
yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah, and then like for the weirdest thing is like Asus recently came out with a brand new, I think it's a Sabertooth
yeah, it's a saber tooth.
RGB. Yeah, I mean, maybe RGB I think was what they added. Um 990 FX board, which is crazy to me
It's
to
like
release one this late in the game.
yeah, Zen's like 2 or 3 months away,
Yeah.
if that.
So either well, like I don't know. My worry is that they have insider info longer than people are hoping. Like that's my concern, but I don't know. It could be that they just plop RGBs and it literally took like a couple days worth of development, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
that worries me. And saying that, I wonder if it's a similar thing along the lines of ASRock's AM3 boards, the really budget ones where they're still using NVIDIA chipsets on them.
They must have been getting those things dirt cheap.
Ah, well, NVIDIA
Um,
hasn't made chipsets since Socket 754, if I remember
yeah, I wonder
rightly.
if they like. maybe they overestimated demand at some point and bought like a warehouse full of them,
Yeah,
and then like they just
because
can't get rid of them.
they had the exact same chipset on ASRock's 754, 939, AM2, AM2 plus, AM3, and AM3 plus boards. It's like, how if this one chipset has supported all of these different processors thanks to ASRock. I take my hat off to the ASRock BIOS team. I can say that much. It's like, how does this work? So I'm wondering if it's a similar situation where there's a whole lot of 990FX or 970 chipsets in warehouses that these companies want to use. They're just going to bring out a couple of new boards. Hope some consumers haven't heard
That would
about
kind of
Zen.
make sense. Yeah, kind of dump boards on uninformed people to make room for Zen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this brand new boards come out next generation, yada yada yada, and they like Zen's 3 months away. And say that I can't say much. I bought a brand new board like 2 weeks ago, and it's A88X platform.
Yeah.
Speaking of next gen, we'll have a chat about the first Kaby Lake tests that have popped into the tech media. So,
Yawn.
yeah. I can't remember the website name. The website PC Online, which is a Chinese review website, has gotten its hands on a i5 7600K and done some benchmarking, and turns out it's not it's not significantly faster than current generation. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's basically the same thing that happened with Haswell to Broadwell.
Yeah.
Like Broadwell, if you needed like an integrated GPU, like those Broadwell chips, those high-end Broadwell chips are amazing.
Because it's
and actually
RS Pro.
Yeah, and it's kind of annoying because like Intel is super stingy with the integrated graphics on desktop. Like it seems, which I mean, I guess it's kind of it makes sense. Like if you need GPU power, you would get a video card. So I mean, I understand that, but still, it's annoying that. Yeah, it's annoying that you can buy like a next gen part, like a Skylake part, and you would get worse. Like you can't buy a desktop Skylake that has better integrated graphics than those Broadwell chips. Like it's annoying. But I mean, so Broadwell is cool for the integrated graphics, but like CPU side of things, like the same thing that looks like is going to happen to Kaby Lake. It's just like barely any performance increase. So like if you have Skylake, like there's just really, I mean, there's really not any reason to upgrade if this is true, which I'm pretty sure is, based on the Haswell Broadwell shift. So, but I mean, unfortunately, especially on the Intel side, this has just kind of been the case for quite a while now. Like Sandy Bridge showed up and just blew everybody away. Ivy Bridge was Haswell was a fairly decent step up, especially like power consumption. And then, but like this last several generations, basically like the main reason it seems like you would want to upgrade an Intel platform is the motherboard. Like USB 3.0, PCI Express 3.0, M.2,
Thunderbolt.
Thunderbolt, USB 3.1, just stuff like that. Because like realistically, if you have a Sandy Bridge processor that overclocks well, you're still really not missing that much compared to like a Skylake system.
In the grand scheme of things, unfortunately, we're still at the point where a Core 2 Quad Q6600 can still keep up with a lot of these things.
Yeah, though the problem with those is the motherboards.
Oh yeah, like most of the features.
Like
so you
like you're lacking features, but also just like they're hard to get the good motherboards for those. Period. Because like they don't make them anymore, and like the good ones are just you can't get them for reasonable prices because you can buy like Core 2 quads fairly cheap on eBay all day long, but finding good motherboards to pair them up with is the issue.
Yeah, because everyone's holding on to them because they like their Core 2 quad. That it's yet see a reason to upgrade, and because they might have a USB 3 card to cover what they need.
Yeah.
I think the main issue is they haven't really had anyone. Intel hasn't really had anyone kind of competing with them. So
Well, yeah, I mean AMD's kind of lackluster, but I
yep.
mean they're competing against themselves too. Because I mean if somebody has been holding on to a Sandy Bridge chip, then like that's somebody who's not buying like a new processor, like whether it's AMD or Intel. So
that's a good point. You can't survive off no sales. Just because someone that already owns your product doesn't mean you're making any more money off them.
Yeah. I mean, and I think people forget it's not like Intel has to innovate. Like even if AMD like quit existing tomorrow, like let's say like
Please
AMD
God, no.
just well, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, let's say like AMD goes bankrupt and just like disappears tomorrow. It would suck, but I mean like Intel would still have to innovate. They couldn't just not innovate because they have to because they have to compete against themselves. Because if people, I mean, they're going to get sales from people like replacing dead systems or building new ones. But I mean, if people just keep holding on to their Sandy Bridge, Ivy Bridge, Haswell, Broadwell, those dozen people who actually bought it, and then Skylake systems for 10 years, then like they would go bankrupt too.
Yes, they would.
So yeah, I don't know. Like Kaby Lake, I don't know. It's just frustrating that it's such a minute increase in performance on the CPU half of things. So
I wonder if we are the CPU results are kind of, what's the word for it, a red herring in a way, where the actual advantage of Kaby Lake as a platform is more integration of different features.
Yeah, I think
the 300 series chipset in a few months.
Yeah, like that's kind of what I'm thinking is like the only reason that I would want to upgrade from Kaby Lake from a Skylake system would be like Optane. That's really it, because I don't use 3.1 and I don't use Wi-Fi, so that's like literally the only thing I would want Kaby Lake for is Optane support. And I'm kind of worried about Optane because they really hyped it up when they first announced the technology, but I forget the name of it, like the actual technology, because Optane is the brand marketing for the drives. 3DX Point.
Yes.
So yeah, 3DX Point, they first announced it like next generation of storage, smoking fast, low latency, blah blah blah, and then like as like the actual release date comes closer and closer, so now it's like Optane is the brand of the drives that will implement the 3DX Point technology. But I've noticed they've kind of walked back on their people's expectations for it. So like the speeds they're talking about, the latency they're talking about, they're kind of like, I don't know, they're not hyping it like they were.
It's gone from sustained to up to this amount.
Yeah, so, and like especially like with the Samsung 960 so fast. I mean, the thing with the Samsung M.2 drives is like really fast, like sequential read and writes. I mean, one of the big advantages of like 3DX Point is going to be like latency. So like they're talking like, I think it was like a 10x reduction in latency and like just really big jump in performance on like that point. But the problem is like, I'm worried that it's not going to translate that much into real world, like noticeable differences.
The only time you're really paying attention to how fast your drive is if you're moving a big file, really.
Yeah. So, I mean, and they're going to be expensive drives. We already know that. So,
prosumer level.
Yeah, I'm kind of worried that the Samsung drives will be faster on sequential, and then like people won't notice the difference on the latency, and then they're so much more expensive. So I don't know. I'm just it better. I mean, I'm really hoping that they're like just blow everybody away, like when people went from hard drives to SSDs. But I'm kind of doubting it. So I don't know. Like the way it's going, there's going to be like no buy Kaby Lake, basically.
Which would be a disaster for Intel. Like there
Yeah,
goes all their R&D money.
yeah. So, but I mean, I guess it's like Broadwell. I mean,
It's either or Cable Lake is like a marketing program for the HEDT platform.
yeah.
You want more performance?
So
Okay, by 2066.
yeah, I don't know.
Excuse me.
Zen better be good. That's all it
Yeah,
is.
and we're still not seeing that for a few months. 2017 is going to be very, very interesting. Like we haven't actually
Yep.
seen anything
So,
exciting this year, have we? In regards
mm,
to new stuff, apart from maybe graphics with the
yeah.
RX and the
Yeah.
1080s.
Graphics is interesting. Yeah, I got the 1000 series from Nvidia and then the 400 series from AMD. No, we're still. I mean, neither of them released HBM2 though, so that
No,
was disappointing.
and we
I was really hoping to see HBM2 this year, but that's not going to happen.
and the RX
Uh,
line that has been released is basically mid-range anyway. If the
yeah,
rumors in regards to the other side of Polaris is to be believed.
yeah. Next year we'll have Vega, we'll have the 1080 Ti,
Zen.
uh, which actually I don't know. I guess it's still kind of in flux whether the 1080 Ti will just be a trimmed down Titan X or
Okay.
the new Titan X, not the old Titan X.
Titan XP, I
We don't want to
think the
confuse
media's
people,
gone.
right? Nvidia.
Yeah, I think the tech media's resorted to calling it the Titan XP.
You have to because it's like, how do you differentiate them?
Yeah, they went like Titan, Titan Black, Titan Black X, Titan X, Titan X Black or something. Is like, really, guys?
Yeah, and yeah, it's stupid.
And they,
So
apart from the current generation, all the other ones look identical.
yeah,
So you
so
could
I
just
mean,
throw
if
it
the
up on eBay.
1080, yeah, that's true. They do look all the same. But yeah, if the 1080 Ti is just a trimmed down Titan X, I mean, or Titan XP,
There we go.
uh, um, then I mean it'll be, I mean, performance king, blah blah blah. But I mean, it's really not that interesting a card.
No.
So like, I don't know, HBM2. I'm really looking forward to, if nothing else, just so we can see smaller cards.
Yeah. So
I was
1080 on
really
the size of an
sad.
ITX board.
Yeah, I was really sad that like AMD made a push with like the Fury X and then the Nano, and then like the Polaris cards, like the 460 is available in like small form factors, but I mean it's a low end card, and then like Nvidia, like the 1060, 1050 Ti, 1050 are all available in short form factors, and there's like that 1 GB 1070, but other than that, not a whole lot of exciting stuff on the small form factor stuff for the high end cards.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, I was
I
kind
mean,
of.
power consumption is reduced, so of course that's always useful. Like physical size hasn't seen any improvement.
Nope. They've just gone for quieter instead.
Yeah, so I'm hoping HBM2. We'll see. Though, I mean, it's kind of always this problem though, is that I guess a large part of the market, like bigger is better. So even like the 1060 GTX 1060, I think the Asus Strix, like it's
It's a
so
triple slot full
overkill.
length card, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a huge card with this big old beefy VRM and heatsink, and it's like 120-watt
Yeah.
processor
Do the
GPU.
fans ever break 30% fan speed?
Yeah, it's so overkill.
You can almost run it
Um,
passive.
So I'm worried that even with HBM2, like AMD has shown that they're not afraid to have a flagship card in a small form factor like Fury X.
And
But Nvidia has kind of done it, like the, what was it, the 670 had basically a short PCB reference.
oh yeah, with the big bit of plastic on the end for the fan.
Yeah, but that's the problem, is like the PCB is short, but then like they basically put an extension on it, to make it look bigger.
Yeah.
And then I'm worried that even with HBM2 allowing the card to be physically very short, that basically none of the actual cards will be that short.
No. It'll all be just blank PCB out to it just to support a big ass cooler.
Yeah, so, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, AMD, at least hopefully Vega will see short cards. Nvidia, I'm not holding out much hope, but whatever.
Yeah, AMD does do a lot of reference small form factor cards, which does help.
Yeah, lately they've been making a very big push on small form factors. So now they just need to bring power consumption down.
Yep.
because like the Fury X, I mean, and the Nano to a degree as well. I mean, physically they're really exciting, the form factor, but power consumption makes them kind of a non-starter for certain type of cases, especially anything with DC-DC. The Nano is really hard to deal with, and then yeah, Fury X, you can just forget it.
Yep.
So
yeah, I'm wondering how long it's going to be before we see an RX Nano.
I really want one.
Yeah, an RX4, like even a 480 RX 485 in a small form factor setup or something like that would be perfect, because that's still, even the 480s still within reason, going to work on a DC to DC power supply.
Yeah, you could do it on a 480. Be pushing it. So I don't know. I'd really like to see him come to parity with NVIDIA as far as power consumption goes, because that would be amazing. Yeah.
We'll see how Vega goes.
Yep.
And we were talking about Intel. Interesting. Anywho, we'll go into our main topic now, which has been suggested by our subscribers, and we're going to start talking about DC to DC power supplies, which is an interesting follow-on from the previous conversation that we're having.
Yeah, yeah, you're right, actually, because so 1461748 posted on
Great username right there.
Yeah, great username, very very memorable. About this 400-watt DC-DC unit. So actually, yeah, coming off the previous conversation,
That'll run a 480.
yeah. So yeah, he found this on Taobao, which is basically the Chinese version. So like you can just, like, individual sellers can like sell things. So there's all sorts of crazy stuff on there. Unfortunately, it's very much geared toward the Chinese market, so they're not very open to selling to like buyers outside the country, because a lot of them don't speak English and they're like hesitant to ship internationally. So it's kind of hard to get stuff off of there. But yeah, he found this 400-watt unit. Really not a lot of information about it, I guess.
No. It's like, the issue that I'm having with it is, how do you power that?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a 400-watt brick?
Bricks. Yeah.
I've seen 300-watt bricks for is it the Dell systems?
Yeah, I think as far as like what you would think of as like a normal consumer like AC/DC power brick, I think the highest they go is about 300 watts. You can get industrial units that go higher, but they're basically like, they're more like Meanwell makes them. They're less power bricks and more like, they're really more like server PSUs at that point.
Yeah, so
like they're metal boxes, and yeah. So I hesitate to call them a power brick, because they're not what you would really think of as a power brick.
It's a power concrete block,
basically. But you can get them in really high wattages.
Yeah.
But that's basically what you'd have to do with one of these. Either that, or I guess it may be possible to like maybe strap two bricks together.
Yeah, I think what company was it? It was the Pico Box had a solution where they had dual inputs.
Yeah, though I don't think the wattage on that thing will go high enough. If I were,
I think it was a 5. They had a 500-watt briefly.
Okay,
but it was huge as well.
So I mean, and I guess the other thing is like at that point you're kind of getting into the territory. I mean, this is always a huge in the SFF community, is like is it cheating if you have a really small case, but then you have basically the case volume, it's double again in power bricks, like external bricks.
AMD Quantum, anyone?
So, yeah,
which was an ATX power supply in a box.
Yeah, which I don't think we ever figured out what that is. Like my speculation is that it's ATX in a box, but I don't think we've ever figured that out for sure. But like with this 400-watt DC unit here, though, I mean, Yeah, it's 400 watt. Yeah, it's not much bigger than the HD Plex 250, so that's super impressive.
Mm.
But then, like, let's say you have to have like dual external bricks, then you have to have them daisy chained using like the Pico box unit or something. So you have some kind of contraption. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's that's kind of to the point where like, is it worth it?
Yeah, it's
I
all
mean, at that
this.
point, let's make the case a little bigger, put like a Flex ATX or an SFX or something, and just be done with it.
Yeah,
Um, but I don't know.
yeah,
Uh, so I think this is something where, like, if Fin6 ever comes out with their like a high wattage but still very compact brick, this would be very very interesting.
mm.
But who knows when that's going to happen or if it'll happen. Um, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think this would work nicely for like packaging purposes. If someone like HD Plex came out with an internal brick like they've got with the 160 watt AC to DC, where it's
Yeah, because
fanless.
they have a 250 coming out.
Okay,
Uh,
and
250 watt ACDC, which isn't, I mean, it's not that much bigger than the 160. Um, but I mean, let's say they do a 400 watt version,
is it going
which,
to be any smaller than
I
Flex
mean,
ATX?
yeah, because it would have to be, because realistically at that point, even if it's like very efficient, that's still quite a bit of waste heat. So it's going
Yeah,
to have bigger heat sinks. So it's going to have to be bigger. And then like you're really getting to the point where like you're right. Like, I mean, it would still be useful because you'd have more flexibility in the case layout.
you put a little box
Because
here, a
like,
little box here, a little box here, and you got
yeah,
all your
because
power.
even if together they're the same volume as a Flex ATX, I mean, Flex ATX is kind of a an odd form factor because I mean, it's really short as far as like height. Like it's only like 41 millimeters tall, but like, and the width is fairly narrow, but then like relative to the width and the
It's
height, it's
so long.
fairly long. Um,
Especially when
which,
you get into the higher wattages, you can get them like
yeah,
way longer than 170 millimeters. So looks huge next to an
which for
ITX board.
certain case layouts, it's actually like perfect.
Yeah,
Because a lot of times you're going to be limited by the motherboard and the video card anyway, so it's usually not that big a deal, but um, it is still kind of a limitation. So I could see this being useful for certain builds, but it's still a very, 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 very niche product. Um, though I do like the 400 watt DC DC. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know if there's really that much of a market for it, but the other product that they have, the rabbit head is what they call it.
yeah.
Uh, that thing looks really cool.
It does look quite
Um,
useful. It's like a what was the word for it? Like a smaller Pico PSU right on the board.
yeah. Well, I don't think that's what it is actually.
Okay, because I know it takes like 12-volt input and it will do the 5. It looks like it does the 5-volt on the little PCB.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think what it does is, yeah, I think what it does is like, because I think some people in the forum were wondering about it. Like it's labeled like I don't think the 400 watt does, but the rabbit head is has like a little ROG like Republica Gamer logo on it.
Mm.
Um, and like if you notice, it's got like a 24 pin and then an 8 pin right next to each other on
Specifically
the
laid
little
out for certain
PCB.
boards.
It's specifically laid out for
Yeah.
the impact boards, which I don't know if they're all have the same spacing of the 24 pin and the 8 pin. They very well may have. Um, but it would plug in just straight onto those boards because on those boards, the 24 pin and the 8 pin is right next to each other, just like this on the right edge of the board.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like as far as I can tell, what this rabbit head thing does is that the other end, or um, it's just got the little PCB and then the 24 pin and the 8 pin, and then it's connected with these thick cables to it looks like a 24 pin, and then I believe it's just pulling 12-volt off, like you would plug it into an ATX power supply, and then it pulls 12-volt, and then it does onboard uh, DC-DC conversion for the 5.5 and the 3.3, and I guess hopefully the -12
Yeah.
um, on the other end. So basically, it's just a way of, rather than having like your 24 pin and then 8-pin wire harness running to the motherboard, you just
32
have these
wires.
two wires.
Yeah.
Um, so that's really neat. Um,
I was.
though,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of one of those things, though. It's like, well, yeah, I guess it does reduce cabling a lot.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
they're fatter cables,
Um,
but you've got less of them.
but I mean, it's basically assuming you have a like a full size power supply anyway, or like at least like SFX or something. Because I'm assuming the idea is like, it, I mean, really, you're not saving that much in cabling unless like you can plug the other end directly into a modular power supply. So I'm assuming there's like certain power supplies is designed to be used in combination with.
Hmm.
Because if you're plugging it into a 24 pin and harness anyway, um, I mean, I guess you could just have that stuffed out of the way, but then that means you have to have a case big enough to stuff the 24 pin cable out of the way anyway.
Yes.
So like you're not really saving that much space. Um, so I don't know. It's an interesting product. It's an interesting idea. I'd like
Yeah.
to see it something like it, but like more universal.
Yeah. The
Um,
way I'm seeing it, though, it opens up a can of worms in a little bit because it's not any. It's not bigger than the whole like DC to DC daughter boards you would see on the previous couple of generations of high end boards. So why can't we just have
oh,
motherboards, high end motherboards that only
yes,
take a
yes, yes,
19
yes.
volt or a 12 volt input because it fits?
Yeah.
That's
Like OEM boards are doing this already, or they have been for a while, really. But
yeah.
like Dell, I've noticed some of the newer Dells and HPs have, I think, an 8-pin on the motherboard,
Mm.
and
And
it's just pure 12 volt, and then you have like it's like 12 volt, and then like your power good and power on. Um, so I think it's like it's power good, power on. There's 2 pins, and then 6 ground, 6 12 volt.
yeah.
So it's 8-pin, and then it just does 5 and 3.3 on board, and so you only have 8 wires. So you go from a uh, and I think they still have CPU power. The last one I looked at, one of the Dells. So yeah, you go from a 24 pin and an 8-pin to an 8-pin and an 8-pin.
Yeah.
So still pretty significant reduction in wire.
And reduce complexity of the power supply, and so you could have a smaller power supply.
Yeah.
The way I see it is maybe in the near future we could have a situation where all you need inside the case is something the size of the HDplex AC to DC, and you don't need the supplementary DC to DC board. You just plug that straight into your board and you're done. And there's no more power brick outside the case cheatsy doodles anymore.
Yeah, because I mean we're basically there with like thin ITX
Yeah.
and like mini STX. So
Yeah.
I would love to see that make it over to like your standard like mini ITX boards and ATX and such. But I don't know. I don't know if that'll ever happen because like the ATX spec is just so ingrained in everything that it'd be hard to transition. Um, it's like all your motherboards and all your power supplies are all ATX and they're all backwards compatible, based more or less backwards compatible for like the last 15 years.
Mm.
So I'd love to see it. I don't know if we'll ever see it.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely making inroads on OEM because, I mean, I built my kid's computer recently, and that's DC in, and the power for the drives comes off the motherboard. It's so easy setting that case up.
The problem with the OEM ones though is that they're not. There's no standard.
No.
Like if it was a standard, but it was a standard that like only OEMs used, at least it's a standard. But as far as I can tell, everybody is just doing their own thing. So
some are 19 volts, some are 12 volts.
Yeah, Dell and HP, I think each have their own pinouts for their units. So you have to buy like a Dell power supply or an HP power supply, which is annoying as far as replacement goes. which is probably why they do it. So you have to buy their parts.
Yeah, that's how you
at least unless you're willing to like repin it. But like a business isn't going to do that. They're just going to buy the Dell part or the HP part.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of the intention. But yeah, I'd love to see some standardization. That'd be nice.
Even just like use the 8-pin, like you were describing, where it's 4 pins for power, or 6 pins for the power, and then 2 power on and power good kind of signals, and just roll with that. But yeah, it's one of those things. You add another standard, and there's what's the XKCD comment? There's 15 competing standards. Let's create another one to use it all. There are now 16 competing standards.
All the issues, yeah. Which, yeah, I mean, because that's the thing is like, you can make good arguments for having like an 8-pin, like 12 volt, and then do onboard DC-DC. But it's like, what about? It'd be more efficient to do 19 volt and then onboard DC-DC from there.
Yeah.
And then, so yeah, it's just, there's a lot of different use cases, so it'd be hard to standardize on just one. So I could very well see that if we did try to do that, we'd end up with like 3 or 4 different versions, none of which are compatible with each other. And
you'd have people frying their boards because they plugged a, say, 19 volt, or sorry, a 12 volt converter for your graphics card into it, and there's a 19 volt board.
Yeah. So.
And you just get the extra overclock.
So I guess that's where like continued development in like the Pico PSU style stuff, I think, is probably going to be the way forward at this point.
It's compatible with everything.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's an interesting product though, like this thing. So I don't know. I'd be curious to see somebody get their hands on it, see if it actually works.
Yeah, it's something I'd like to see is like, I don't know, a middleman for Taobao where you kind of can search.
I think they exist because I know there's like, I'm not sure about China. I know for Japan there's like, you can basically like
auctions.
pay a premium for them to basically shop for you.
Yeah.
You just give them the URLs like I want this, and then they'll buy it and then have it shipped to them, and then they'll ship it to you. But that gets kind of expensive. And I don't know how that works. I'm assuming something similar exists for China.
Yeah, I mean, I've got like forwarding systems and stuff like that for my New Zealand's postal system. We've got forwarding addresses in China, UK, US, that kind of stuff. But it's the actual contacting the Taobao sellers. And
yeah, because a lot of them don't speak English, and then like the translation, like Google Translate for Chinese does not work very well.
Nope.
But yeah, it's also, I mean, it makes sense. It's a 400 watt unit, but it comes with a 300 watt brick, but it's like $200 for this thing. Then you add shipping and then like whatever fees for like, if you do go through like a third party, like middleman. So it ended up being kind of pricey. And then of course, like there's all the question about like how this works and whether it works, and
all the instruction manuals will be in Chinese, and then you can try and translate that, and
if you get one,
hope the instruction manuals are at least clear enough you can set it up correctly, and you're not like plugging something in backwards and kill everything in one go.
So
yeah,
I don't know. It's cool though. It's interesting though that we're seeing like these kind of developments from basically like just small random companies. Because like HD Plex is a fairly small operation. PicoBox seems to be kind of on the bigger side since they do a lot of OEM type stuff.
Their stuff's OEM.
Yeah, but then like this one, I mean, that's kind of the hard thing with Chinese sellers is like you have no idea if there's like a factory behind this or if it's just one guy doing this in his spare time.
Yeah, I mean, this could be made by Silverstone for all we know, and it's just not launched to internationals.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's an interesting product, but
it is. Form factor wise, I'm not a big fan of this style. I kind of prefer
the Pico PSU better.
I like the Pico PSU, or if we could get something along the lines of like a 3.5 inch or a 2.5 inch kind of form factor. So that way you could like there's existing mounting.
2.5 would be difficult because that's pretty small.
Edge connectors are. You'd end up with like a full thickness drive and that equivalent, but because you've got like the mounting for that kind of stuff is already well known, well established.
Hmm.
and you could work with that.
3.5, I think, would be possible. 2.5, I think, would be difficult in any kind of meaningful wattage.
Yeah, and 3.5, going by the size of it, you could probably fit AC to DC in that space as well.
Oh yeah, like something in a 3.5-inch form factor was say, uh, I think with like 150 watts, I would think that'd be doable.
Yeah.
Um, like, yeah, I mean, it would be difficult, but I think it'd be doable. Just
Well,
kind of based on existing products. So,
yeah. Well, we thought a DC to DC over 200 watts about a year ago would have been difficult, and suddenly we've got
yeah,
400 watt. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Pico Box did a 500 watt at some point. It's
I think you're right, though. I don't know if they still make that.
Right, they're difficult to check because they like their website's broken and
Yeah, their
has been for
website's
so
perpetually
long.
broken. Yeah.
Uh,
Like some parts of it work, but it's like, and they're not the only ones though. I don't know what it is with Chinese companies and their websites, but there's several different Chinese companies I've looked at that like different parts of their sites are like just like completely different. Um,
it's
I
like they
think
just
I was
slap something
looking at,
together.
well, yeah, I think I was looking at load testers for power supplies, and I forget who it was. I was looking at one or two of them, and like part of the site looked like relatively modern. Like, I mean, it was like a functional website with pictures, and it was like, but like it didn't have very much like information on it. So like you click on a link to like a product page, and then it's like a whole different website. Um, it's something that's like 15 years old, it's just all text, and like half the links are broken and
Optimized for
just don't
Internet
go
Explorer
anywhere.
3.
Yeah. And then like you click on another link and then it just takes you to something else that looks completely different than the previous one, but it's still just as broken. And then like, like I don't know, it's just weird. And then like Pico Box is basically like that.
Yeah, it fills you with. Unfortunately, it doesn't fill you with much confidence. That is
Yeah.
to like long
But
term
it's like it's
support.
not just Pico Box though, for
No.
anybody who's ever looked at their website. It's like a lot of Chinese companies do that, so it's not unique to them. Um and I just I don't get why that is though. Um, it, I don't know. I guess I don't know. It's just weird. I guess because like if you ever look at like AliExpress pages, like they're like an AliExpress store or Alibaba store is basically a website into itself.
Yeah, I
So
think they're focusing on that, whereas the other websites
yeah,
just for those who can't use those websites.
yeah, but it's just kind of weird from I guess a Western perspective because it'd be so weird for a company like to like basically like live on an eBay listing or something like that, and like their website's just like completely broken. That would just be so weird.
But it's completely normal for the Chinese market.
Yeah, which I don't know. I guess it's just a different perspective on things.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much they actually end up doing the bulk sales. Maybe we need someone to step up and do like buy in bulk these different like power supplies and nifty little ITX cases that you can only get in China and resell them. Just like a small form factor focused reseller for the English speaking world.
Yeah, I think part of the problem though would be pricing.
Yeah.
Because like they're really cheap to buy in China, but then like, well, I don't know. There may be a market for it, but it'd be difficult.
Yeah.
Um,
I'd say a lot of like some of the DC to DC stuff would be probably quite sought after. Like how much we're only seeing, are we only just scratching the surface with what's available, just with what's been found so far. Like, is there other stuff that's hiding there? Maybe the Chinese market has a 500 watt 12 volt
there's
brick
all
that's the
sorts of
size of a laptop brick.
yeah, there's all sorts of cool products over there that just aren't available here and stuff like that. So
Like AliExpress ITX cases, they've got some really cool things.
well,
Like,
they have a lot of stuff that looks nice in the pictures.
yeah, I don't
Like
know.
there's several of them that I'm kind of questioning, like how good the build quality actually is.
I think
Because like,
yeah.
yeah,
The one I'm actually semi interested in is there's a S4 Mini style layout, but it takes half height cards. And I found that one. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe it's something I'll go at some point, maybe early next year. Or I'll order 1 or 2 different ITX cases off AliExpress and see what the quality really is like. An expose of sorts.
I mean, for the prices some of them are sold at, quality can't be very good.
No. And saying that, if you sell enough, you can get the cost right down. I mean, you can buy a passable computer case, like steel computer case these days for what, $20-$30 brand new.
Well, like the mass-produced ones, I could understand, but like there's some of the Chinese cases that look like they're basically handmade, or at least like very low production volume. Like I guess like kind of like the NK-SM1. So, but the thing is like the problem with Chinese manufacturing is that if it's mass produced and you have lots of quality engineers to like ensure things are built correctly, you can get really, really, really good quality out of China. Like people have this conception that Chinese manufacturing is always junk, but that's not true. I mean, 90%
of the stuff
all your electronics are made in China.
Yeah.
Like all your Apple products that everybody goes like just always is praising the build quality. Those are all made in China.
Yeah, it's all Foxconn.
So, but I mean, basically, Apple's basically holding him to it though to get that kind of quality. So like some of these like cheap, low production volume ITX cases on like Taobao and Alibaba. I don't know. I really would be curious what the build quality is like on those type of stuff.
I think it'll be an interesting topic to cover in the near future.
Yep.
So with that, we'll go into the next section, which is our favourite forum thread of the fortnight. We're not going to continue with the many Fs.
It was getting a little out of hand.
It was getting a little out of control.
Yeah. Though we should maybe keep track of how many there should be, and then have like maybe episode like 50 or something.
Oh no!
And then have like
half the podcast will be F words.
Yeah, that would be funny.
That I don't think I could swing it like Joshua does, and actually.
I know he gets it every time on the first try too, which is crazy to me.
I stumble saying small form factor half the time, and he can get like 18 Fs and not have any issue whatsoever.
I know, it's crazy.
I mean, you heard the intro to this podcast. I stumbled half of it anyway. And saying that I wasn't quite expecting to host today until relatively recently.
Yay for last minute schedule issues.
Yay. Hey, at least we actually managed to record this time.
Yeah, I think we were on time too, right?
Well, we've got no choice now. I set a timer.
Yeah.
Anywho, the favourite forum thread of the fortnight this fortnight is the show your new topics, show your new toys topics. Yeah, I stuffed that up. This is an ongoing thread that we've got on the forum where if you buy something new and shiny, you would like to see it. Just for people's opinions on things, and there's quite a lot of buyer's advice in there as well. So if you've got like wanting to buy a new sound card or a new audio device or new motherboard, you can actually go in there, find someone who's done something relatively recently as well, and there's a lot of advice in there. But this thread has covered everything from, say, I don't know, some $5 little accessory for your computer to cars.
I know, it's really amazing the variety of stuff. So like, yeah, I got like speakers and then car speakers and then headphones, because like audio is always a popular stuff to buy new and shiny.
Yeah.
And then like tools and video cards and cars and car accessories and all sorts of interesting stuff. It's really cool seeing what people spend their money on.
Yeah, I'm impressed the amount of people who are into like other hobbies as well. Like it's not just, we're not here just for the whole small form factor thing. We can do other things like work on cars or build things with our hands.
Well, I noticed that a lot with computer enthusiasts, though. Is I notice a lot of them have like cars is another popular kind of
Yeah,
co-hobby, um, and then audio kind of ties into it as well. So
that's the thing. You
um,
want the full experience at your desk, so good audio is very important.
oh man, audio is such that's such a rabbit hole
Yeah,
of a hobby to get into.
but I'm quite proud of our community where audio is usually quite a what's the word for it, controversial topic.
Oh yes,
But every
gotta have
conversation,
your silver-plated oxygen-free cables, man.
yep. Whereas our coat hanger will do exactly the same job.
Yeah.
Don't flame me. But every conversation that we've had in the thread about audio has been civilized. It's been nice. Good information has come out from it. So,
And hopefully it stays that way because, like, oh man, you go to something like the Head Five forums.
oh no,
Oh, I can like, uh, maybe Head Five I think does fairly well most of the time, but yeah, you can definitely go off the deep end when it comes to audio.
well you
So
can with
like,
everything.
well, I mean, like at least computers, like it's really kind of hard to spend more than like $5,000 on a computer without just getting really stupid. But like $5,000 for like really high end audio file, like that would
That's
buy you
nothing.
a couple cables.
Yeah,
Like literally, you could buy a couple cables and spend
that would
$5,000.
be a USB
It's
DAC.
just it's just absurd.
Yeah,
Um, but like it's you really can't do that in PCs.
unless you're
Because
like
like
full form factor, where you can do like three 1080 Ti's or 1080s.
well, even then, like even if you do like quad Titan X's, only $4,000. Um, and then like even if you do like a well, like once you get into dual socket, you can start spending lots of money.
Hmm.
But it's
I've been there
like
before.
audio file, it definitely becomes questionable after a point. Like, is it worth it? But like the thing with audio though is it's like
Very
you can't really
subjective.
measure it. Yeah, it's very subjective. But whereas a computer, like it's very, very measurable that dual socket, like having dual socket like 12 core processors, like for gaming is literally worthless.
Yeah,
Like it's
it's you're
like
gonna get
you can
slower than a
measure
good
it.
quad.
Yeah, you can measure that it actually performs worse. So it's like there's not any justification for it. You can't go on a forum and pretend that having 24 cores or whatever markedly improves your gaming experience because you can measure it and show objectively that no, it's actually worse.
Hmm.
Whereas audio, you can't do that. So you get into all these weird, super high end stuff. Um, so yeah, at least that's one nice thing with computers is like you really can't just go completely off the deep end on spending money.
I mean, was it Linus Tech Tips did a video this week or late last week where it's called the Compensator, which is a rig they do once a year with the highest end components, and this one was quad GTX 1080s, and the performance was worse than like a single, say, 1060 on a lot of things, which is crazy.
Which I mean, Nvidia basically
They said
put
don't
the
do it.
stop on quad sly. Like it's yeah. So like basically the only reason you do that is just to show off. Like
Yeah. Or if
it's
you're doing
actually like
compute.
basically impossible now to actually play games on quad sly.
Yeah.
So at least with the new cards. And then like they really don't like Sly. Like the 1060 doesn't even have Sly connectors.
Yeah.
um,
Which you go to the AMD side, it gets a little confusing because the whole, well, they do everything through the slot.
yeah,
And
so then
some
you're
that
kind of like you're more limited by like the motherboard and stuff.
yeah, I'm pretty sure you
Um,
can crossfire like, you could crossfire it at R3 230 or something like that, or R5 230. I don't know why you'd want to, but
oh yeah, there's no point.
no.
Yeah.
But you probably
No, I mean I have seen people Sly low in cards
they do it for
like
the
back.
monitor outputs, I think.
Well,
Although,
actually, well, no, I've seen them. I've seen people do it on like I think I saw somebody do it on a 550 or 550 Ti or
okay,
something like that, like a pretty low end card. Um, and I think he just didn't maybe understand at the time that he would have been better off with like a 570.
Yeah.
Um,
Actually, at one point I did Crossfire of HD 5570s because they cost like $30 each, but that was only for basically for the lols.
Yeah, there's like any kind of like performance metric, it's not worth it. You're better off with just a higher end card.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting to see the how wide the interest of our community is. Like as we've been talking, I've been scrolling through the thread on different pages, and yeah, it's motherboards, it's graphics cards, it's audio equipment. I just scrolled past when I bought my car. Different cooling things. There's been desks. There's been everything. So yeah. And with that, I think we'll wrap it up. So thank you for listening. This is the first of our new format podcast where we're streaming live to YouTube as we record. We'll still be doing the after show for subscribers only. But thank you for joining us. Sorry about any of the mistakes. Well, I didn't expect to be hosting today, so that was thrown in as well as trying to do all the content, which was interesting. And yeah, so you've got any plans for later for the rest of the week, James?
Not really. I don't really have anything like the Desk Mini Ace Rock board. I still need to review, but
please.
Like I ended up having to. Well, that's the problem is that I misplaced my notes when I had done like the testing on it, like the thermal testing and stuff.
Yeah.
And I need to rerun it, but the processor I had to use for something else.
No.
So
I know they're paying too well with testing boards.
Kind of postponed indefinitely. So because I'm not sure when I'll be able to redo that testing. So yeah, I'll just have to wait on that. And then other than that, like the I'm supposed to be getting like prototypes for like some of the HD Plex stuff, but I'm not sure when that's going to happen. Because he told me about that a couple weeks ago, and I guess he ran into problems with the prototypes. So yeah, I'll just whenever I get those, I'll be fun to test because it's going to be the 250 watt Pico PSU style unit that they have, the 250 watt AC/DC, and then he has a new longer PCI Express extender. So it'll be interesting to test all that.
That'd be exciting. More reviews. We're always looking for more reviews. I think my plans for the rest of the week is just continue on with pushing the news and reviews side of the website and doing a little bit more optimization to the podcast stuff because I can see quite a lot of room to grow on it. So with that, we'll say goodbye. Thank you very much for listening to the podcast. This will be available straight away on youtube.com/c/smallformfactornetwork/live, which we will link on our website in the post about it. Soon this will also be available as an audio-only podcast on low volume of the regular website. So yeah, thank you very much for listening and goodbye.